Authentication is a process of verifying that a person is who he says he is. In antiquity, transactions were face-to-face, and you could recognize who the individual is by their face or the sound of their voice. In the industrial age, large cities and large volumes of people required more sophisticated authentication. Driver's license, passport, holograms, and other IDs that are difficult to forge were introduced to verify that a person is who he says he is. In the Internet age, our information is everywhere. A mass market permits remote users, millions of users, to exchange communications. As a result, our personal information lives online anywhere we shop or surf, from accessing our bank accounts to accessing our emails. At the beginning of the Internet and e-commerce market, almost all Internet or e-commerce sites relied on a username and a static password for authentication. Soon, users realized that using one password for everything was not good enough, because it could be intercepted and used by another to access their accounts. Different alternative technological solutions have been proposed. However, such techniques were primarily based on a one-time password and a public key protocol, but the process was complicated and not suited for the mass market. Soon, government and online businesses realized that static passwords alone are no longer safe and sufficient to protect our personal information and online accounts. So, some online businesses and government agencies began searching for other authentication technologies to overcome the weaknesses of password-based authentication solutions. Some alternatives to the password-based authentication technology were public key protocol, smart cards, digital certificates, hardware tokens, and biometrics. Despite the fact that these technologies were more secure than static passwords, the Kamrani brothers realized very early on that these authentication technologies had a number of drawbacks, and they predicted that these technologies would not be adopted by the mass market, where businesses and government agencies deal with millions of users. The Kamrani brothers proposed a technological solution for the technological problem of providing authentication of users over the Internet. The 432 patent says, the present invention relates to a centralized identification and authentication system and method for identifying an individual over a communication network such as Internet to increase security in e-commerce. More particularly, a method and system for generation of a dynamic, non-predictable, and time-dependent secure code for the purpose of positively identifying an individual. So, what is a centralized identification and authentication system and method all about? The 432 patent is about enabling online businesses and government agencies to overcome the drawbacks of the prior art and to offer a method and system for identification and authorization of users over a communication network without compromising a high level of security. The 432 patent comprises three actors: a user, a central entity, and an external entity. A central entity is a central authentication system having at least one computer server which provides authentication services to one or more external systems. An external entity is an external computer system which is physically or logically separate from the central authentication system for offering goods or services. Here is one example of how the patented centralized identification and authentication system and method works. A user visits a website which is the external computer system to access her account. For authentication purposes, she realizes that she has forgotten her password and cannot access her account. She enters her user-specific information, such as an ID or account number, and requests to reset her password. The external computer system forwards a request to the central authentication system for a dynamic code. The central authentication system generates a dynamic code and provides the dynamic code to her via text message. The user receives her dynamic code and enters the dynamic code on the website, which is the external computer system, to reset her password. The external computer system forwards the dynamic code and the user-specific information to the central authentication system. The central authentication system authenticates the user and provides a result back to the external computer system. The external computer system allows her to reset her password. The 432 patent provides an authentication method and centralizes the authentication system. The 432 patented centralized authentication system and method provides a technical roadblock to hackers. Additionally, the 432 patent is a cost-effective and easy-to-use authentication solution. So, the 432 patent is a significant technological improvement over the prior art by solving mass-market authentication challenges.